Welcome to Digital Beats. It is a series of short talk with industry leaders to unlock the key to digital transformation. My name is Hong Choi, and I lead the Global Partner Ecosystem and Strategic Alliance Business Unit at Alibaba Cloud. I spent my entire career in tech, transforming IT from a cost center to a critical business enablers. And today, I am super excited to invite two industry leaders to Digital Beats. First, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Fei Li. He is the VP of Alibaba Group, an ACM Distinguished Scientist, President of the Database Product Business Unit of Alibaba Cloud, and last but not least, also the Director of the Database and Storage Lab at Damo Academy. This is the equivalent of our R&D center. He is also currently the lead R&D executive for developing Alibaba Cloud native database systems and products. And so Fei, welcome to Digital Beats. Second, I'd like to welcome my friend Alan Chabra. He is the Senior Vice President of Worldwide Partners and APAC Sales at MongoDB. Before joining MongoDB, Alan was an executive at BMC Software, where he managed a $200 million revenue business that touches over 1,000 customers. He's also a graduate of MIT as a mechanical and aerospace engineer. Alan, welcome to Digital Beats.
Thanks, Hong. I'm really happy to be here.
Great. Trends in modern applications development. The global pandemic has taught us many things. One of them is old norms are being replaced by new trends. So in the modern application development space, what are some trends to watch out for? So Alan, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, thanks, Hong. And I think this was one of the reasons why the two companies, Alibaba and MongoDB, came together with the executive and thought leadership by Fei. Alibaba has become the cloud, especially in China, for developers who want to help the industry and help their own enterprise. Now, look, COVID has accelerated the natural trend where enterprises are trying to become software companies. They're trying to innovate and use software to create a competitive advantage. Car companies today, they really don't just make automobiles, they make smart devices. Retailers don't open up storefronts, they opened up e-commerce sites. And Alibaba's cloud has always been the place where many developers go to go get the best products to develop software for the enterprise, which is one of the reasons why MongoDB wanted to be part of the Alibaba community, because we have the best, most modern database in the world to help those developers. So the trend that we're seeing is that developing software, writing software for an enterprise to be competitive is not easy, because 80% of enterprise actually fail at their first attempt to become digital or to transform. And the number one reason they fail is they don't have a great way to manage data. Data is the new currency. Data is exploding. Data, if you don't manage it correctly, you also could have security problems. And that's what the major trend today is. Every developer needs to find ways to manage data better so that they can innovate and not have blockers when writing software.
Awesome insight. I'll definitely have a couple follow-up based on what you just said. But Fei, from your perspective, what are the trends to watch out for enterprise developer?
Yeah, I think the transformation to be 100% digital, 100% online has been ongoing even before the COVID-19 pandemic. And the COVID-19 pandemic has essentially accelerated this process. And in this process, like Alan has mentioned, more and more enterprise from all sectors, as far as I can tell, are going to an online and or online offline combined mode of operating their business. This range from e-commerce to traditional brick and mortar stores to car manufacturer, as Alan has mentioned, and increasingly developers and enterprise users are looking for what we call a data-centric solution. Everything is about managing and processing your data much more efficiently than before. So database is no longer the traditional concept of OLTP operational database. I think database becoming a central portal of where you manage and process and analyze all your data. And we call that a one-stop solution or a one-stop platform for data governance or data management for all you need to do with your data. So that's the trend we see. And that's the key reason and the critical reason why we choose MongoDB as our global partner, most important partner for Alibaba Cloud Database, to tackle this challenge together. MongoDB, as we all know, offers the excellent capability of processing JSON document type of data. But expanding beyond that, way beyond that, MongoDB has added the ability to deal with transactions in a distributed fashion, added the ability to process multi-model data, and so on and so forth. So we see MongoDB achieving the goal of becoming a one-stop platform for data management needs. That's part of the reason why we are teaming up with Mongo, and we see a lot of customers benefit tremendously from this partnership. And in addition to MongoDB, of course, Alibaba Cloud, as a cloud database service vendor, we provide a wide range of other database product and services and solutions, ranging from TP to OLAP, data warehouse, to NoSQL, and so on and so forth. Together, using this different product together and with a centralized cloud native based operation platform, users can easily manage all their data analytical and processing needs in one place. That's the trend I have seen from the COVID-19 pandemic across the globe.
Thanks. It seems like from both of your response, there seems to be the trend is like data is that new currency, and data turned into insight is basically power, right? Because you get the power now to really decide in real time what you want to do with it. When you mentioned power company, I was thinking about Tesla, right? And so speaking of data, then obviously there's the developer as well. So why is the developer plays such an important figure in modern enterprise nowadays? And what challenges will they be facing now moving forward?
Yeah, great question. Maybe I can take that first, Feifei.
Yeah, please take that first, Alan. Yeah.
I mean, look, if a traditional enterprise is using software to become more competitive, they need to invest in developers. And most CXOs in these enterprises actually think about, how can I make my developers more productive? How can I recruit the most talented developers? How can I get them to produce software faster and not get bottlenecks within the IT organization that potentially could slow things down? So CXOs in the enterprises know they need to use software to compete, to innovate, potentially even change their business models. In order to do that, you need to have developers, you need to hire them, you need to recruit them, you need to develop them, and you need to give them tools and access to budget to go produce. Okay, if you think about a developer's challenges today versus in the 1990s, in the 1990s, you could write an application and data was simple back then. You know, we can say that now. Things could fit in rows and columns. Really, data was someone's, address. Maybe they're in the US, their social security number, maybe their name, their date of birth. It was very easy to kind of manage data. Now, data was large data sets. There were a lot of people in the world back then as well, but it was simple and easy to put in a technology where it was rows and columns. If you fast forward to the last 20 years, think about the innovation that's happened. The mobile phone. everyone's mobile phone, you're creating data almost every second of the day. You're taking, maybe you're recording a video, maybe you're taking a photo, maybe you have the GPS components turned on, so you're creating geospatial coordinates. Maybe you like to be doing social, where you're sending tweets or checking your Facebook page, right? So think about that movement alone, just the phone, and multiply it by the billions of people in the world. So think about how much more data has been created in the last 20 years and how unstructured it is. Try taking a video and putting it into a row and column database, and then try to write an application to go speak to it. It's fairly impossible. So developers need better ways to both handle large scales of data, but also unstructured data. And that's why the CXOs at enterprises are really focused on developer productivity. That's a metric they measure, because if the developers aren't productive, they can't compete because they can't write software faster.
Yeah. And Fei, so what are you seeing from Alibaba perspective in terms of the role of developers, the critical role of developers in a modern enterprise?
I think developers are, are in the central picture of everything we do nowadays, right? Everything is data centric, and we need developers to develop apps to connect all the things we have mentioned. I think there are two things I want to add to what Alan had already mentioned. One is data is increasing in volume. That's what we call so-called big data. But big data has another dimension, which is data are coming in with much more formats, much more features than before. In fact, according to Gartner's report, by 2025, more than 85% of the data that we have to deal with will be unstructured, became popular in the very first place because Mongo adopted a JSON-centric data model. And JSON data type, as we all know, compared to the traditional relational data model, is very flexible. It allows you to change and update the schema on the fly. I think that's one of the key reasons. Of course, there are many, many key reasons for the success of Mongo, but that's, in my opinion, second to none. That's the reason for the initial takeoff of Mongo. And going beyond Mongo, from all the developers I talked to that use Alibaba Cloud database services and systems, such as PolarDB, our cloud native relational database service, and AnalyticDB, our cloud native data warehouse product, developers are increasingly looking for agile development environment, such as CI/CD and cloud native architecture, so that they don't really need to worry about the nasty nature of the underlying cloud infrastructure. They focus on the where the business value are, which is the data layer. That's part of the reason why we see the amazing success of Snowflake, right? Instead of having a traditional concept of, oh, you have a traditional database, you have a traditional big data platform, then you have to build data pipes to connect them all. You have one place, a central data platform, built on top of the complexity of the underlying IT cloud infrastructure. But as a developer, you don't have to worry about any of this. You can quickly develop your app. The other thing I want to add is developers are increasingly looking for open source system to build a community around it. That's another reason why Mongo is successful, of course. So I think any company moving forward, including cloud vendors like us, really need to think about our strategy, how we play together, how we grow together, how we can even become a part of the greater open source community. That will be insights on this question.
No, it's no, what you just said is spot on. It kind of reminds me as back in my early days in my career when I used to write code for a living, where the proliferation of data coming in. I was coined it, referred to as data soup, because we get data coming from multiple places, and what can you do out of that data soup? And I kind of wish that the technologies like Mongo is available back then. But so in some sense, modern developers, given all the challenges with the huge amount of data, there is technology that allows them to make their lives easier. So that's something that they can take part to know that there are solutions, even though there are tremendous challenges. Alan, back to you. I mean, so given what we just said, I mean, how can MongoDB help, besides what we just talked about? What else can MongoDB help increase the productivity of the developers?
Well, I think that's Fei answered it brilliantly, and he's an expert in database. But to add a little bit to what he was saying, you know, our company was founded 12 years ago by developers. The founders actually came out of advertising data management, the typical banner ad management on the internet. And what they realized is they could not manage that type of data set with a relational database. So they invented MongoDB 12 years ago, and they invented the document model, which is our way of storing data, store it in documents versus rows and columns. So the developers have always been part of our DNA. So when we developed this document model database, it was really designed for developers, and that's who MongoDB sells to. So we actually are a company founded by developers, therefore we make products for them. So the document model is probably the number one way. You don't need as many lines of code when you're writing software, and you definitely can handle those unstructured data sets that Fei said so brilliantly. Second is we are so focused on allowing these developers to get MongoDB where they want to get it. And Alibaba is one of the top and most popular places to get MongoDB and get it in a certified, highly secure, high performant cloud, which Alibaba provides. Actually, I know this is a worldwide discussion, but if you focus just on China, MongoDB is downloaded the most in China almost versus any other country in the world. There's so many brilliant and smart developers in China. So if you're a developer in China and you want a good way to get MongoDB as a service where you don't need to have to worry about the operations, the backup, the monitoring that may slow down the real work, which is the innovation, you could just go to Alibaba's Aspera DB for MongoDB offering and get access to MongoDB as a service quickly. So the second way we're helping customers and developers increase productivity is we're partnering with the best-in-class cloud providers like Alibaba to create these MongoDBs as a service. And finally, Fei said it. It's about your community. There are thousands, if not maybe million, people in the world that are part of the MongoDB ecosystem. They're developing products, writing code, contributing to the community, using the open source framework around the world. You join the Alibaba MongoDB community, you get access to their innovations. They share a lot. So I think those are the three ways we help. But most importantly, partnering with companies like Alibaba allow us to get our software to the developers faster in a more performant, high secure cloud way.
So Fei, back to you. I mean, I'm feeling excited right now if I'm a modern app developer because all these technologies and tools are at my disposal. So if I'm thinking about modernizing my app for my enterprise, what are a couple of top 1 or 2 or 3 use cases I should be thinking about?
Well, there are many things we can talk about with respect to this topic. But one thing I do want to remind or share with the developer out there, whether you are developing a mobile app or IoT app or server app or desktop app, one thing to keep in mind is almost everything is moving to the cloud. That's not by me, that's by all the major analytics outlets out there, such as Gartner, IDC, Forrester. If you read any of those reports, a clear and major trend you can see is that enterprise and end users are moving to the cloud. So one thing you do need to keep in mind when you develop your app is how to make your app cloud native and how to make it easy to be deployed in a cloud environment. There are two aspects when we explain that sentence, as I said. How do you make your app cloud native? There are two things super important you want to keep in mind. One is your app must be developed in a way such that it can be easily deployed in a cloud native infrastructure, such as, for example, using microservices and use inner services, so that your app, once being developed, can be deployed in a Kubernetes, for example, orchestrated environment seamlessly, because all the enterprise I talk to are moving towards this direction. The other thing when you develop your app is if your app depends on some other modules, which obviously you will, because there's no way you want to or you can develop your app everything bottom up from scratch. You do have to rely on the underlying operating system, the runtime environment, a database, and so on and so forth. So one thing to keep in mind is choose those dependencies carefully so that those dependencies are better to be cloud native systems or architectures, so that when you develop your app using those components, they don't become a dragger of your app. For example, when you are dealing with document type of data, think of Mongo using Alibaba Cloud managed MongoDB services or MongoDB Atlas cloud services, so that you can easily develop your app on any cloud wherever you want to take it to. If you're using a cloud native database, Alibaba Cloud PolarDB, for example, the list goes on and on. What I mean is, use something that's built for the cloud to be deployed in the cloud so that your app become cloud ready the day it was written.
That's awesome. Yeah, the developers have so much options and tools nowadays. So, the sky's the limit from my perspective. So thanks for your input, both of you, Fei and Alan, on this tremendous topic.